Hey there, welcome to another episode of the Cutting Room Floor. This is a segment where we get to go a little bit into a little bit more detail about a recent message or a recent passage as we've been from Sunny Slope Church. This past Sunday, we looked at a passage that has to do with offerings given for unintentional sins. And we talked a lot about how there are times that you and we might do things that we don't realize in the moment that it's wrong. It's like maybe you tease someone and you think it's all in good fun, and you only find out later on that actually your words really hurt someone. And so the text of Leviticus chapter 4 helps us to understand, helps us to see that God makes provision for those unintentional sins. One of the things that we didn't spend a lot of time looking at, but I think is relevant and I think it's important, is that the structure of chapter 4 shows us that there are actually a series of offerings that would be made by different people. And they all fall under this category of dealing with unintentional sin. But there are offerings that are different offerings that are prescribed first for the high priest, for the leaders of the people, for the congregation, and then for the individual. And what's striking in that list is that the offerings for the priest are actually more substantive, they're more costly, they're more expensive than the offerings that were required for the lay person. And so what you kind of get as you go through chapter 4, you see there's first the offering for the priest, and the priest had to bring a very expensive, very costly animal, and then then I think it's for the leader, and then it's for the whole Israelite community. Or I got that backwards. It's first for the Israelite community, then for the leader, and then it's for an individual member of the community. And the offering goes from the most costly to the less costly. Why is that important? Well, one of the things that this tells us is that God recognizes that leaders play a unique role in the life of the church. And leaders who make mistakes, even if they are unintentional, they have a striking impact, a strong impact on the people that they lead. And so when leaders make mistakes and when leaders fail, the repercussions of that can actually be more severe. When you have a leader who falls into error, when you have a leader who makes a mistake or, say, loses his temper in a meeting or something of that sort, or when a leader fails to address a problem in the community or something of that sort, the damage of that actually can spread quite significantly. And so the way that God sets this out is he's trying to emphasize that leaders are held to a high standard. And we actually find that to be the case in the New Testament as well. When Paul is laying out the qualifications for elders and deacons, the principle is still there that leaders are held to a higher standard. They're held to a standard of recognizing that their influence in the community is significant, and that they must then live up to that high standard. Now, obviously, leaders fail and they make mistakes, hence the need for these offerings and these need for these sacrifices. And the good news, of course, is that God's grace covers those mistakes. God's grace even atones for the mistakes and the failures of leadership. But leaders should be quick and eager to own up to their mistakes and to own up to their shortcomings and their failures. Unfortunately, in the church in North America in the past 10 or 15 years, there has been a concerning number of high-profile Christian leaders who have fallen from grace. And as concerning as that is, these are usually pastors who are caught up in leadership scandals. Sometimes it's financial mismanagement, sometimes it's sexual misconduct, sometimes it's just abuse of power, the way that leaders abuse their positions for personal gain and for personal advantage. That's concerning enough on its own, but unfortunately what has also happened is when leaders have been caught, they've actually been very slow to acknowledge it. They've become defensive. They become aggressive. In some cases, they're forced out of their position, and then they just go and they start in a new position. They start in a new leadership position. And I think God is actually, that runs contrary to God's desire for his people. He desires that the leaders of his community, first of all, be held to that high standard. They ought to be people who are worthy of their office, worthy of their title. Not that they're to be perfect, not that we should have unrealistic expectations, but when they fail and when they fall short, then the leaders should be quick to acknowledge that. So I want to just say that first to myself as a leader. That's something that I need to take to heart, and I want to share it with anyone watching this who is also a leader. Maybe you're a leader here at Sunny Slope Church. Maybe you're a Sunday school teacher, or an elder or deacon, past or present, maybe future elder or deacon. Remember that God has high standards for you. God has high desires for how you lead, because you have the potential to exert great influence over God's people. Don't fear making mistakes, because God makes provision for that. But be quick to acknowledge them. Be quick to recognize your shortcomings and your failures. Own up to them. Confess them to the person that you've wronged, and seek their forgiveness and seek God's mercy. You play an important part in the life of the church. God uses you, and humble leaders are a precious gift to the church. Don't forget to like and subscribe, leave a comment, share this video with someone, and we'll see you next time on the cutting room floor.